He had wealth that could buy anything: cars, mansions, vacations, even the illusion of love. But one question kept haunting him. Would she still stay if I had nothing? So, the millionaire devised a shocking test. He pretended to be paralyzed, watching closely to see whether his glamorous girlfriend would stand by his side or walk away the moment the money seemed out of reach. What he never expected was that while his girlfriend's true colors came to light, someone else, quiet, humble, and unnoticed, would step in with a kind of love money could never purchase. This is not just a story about betrayal and heartbreak, but about finding true love in the most unexpected place. Stay tuned, because what happens next will shock you and inspire you. The mansion stood like a silent palace at the edge of the city, guarded by golden gates and fountains that seemed to whisper stories of wealth. Inside, Daniel Moretti moved through his empire of luxury with an elegance that only money could buy. His name carried weight in business circles. His cars were the envy of every man, and his lifestyle was the dream of every woman. Yet, despite the perfection, a restless emptiness shadowed him like a ghost. He had everything except certainty that his girlfriend Vanessa truly loved him. Vanessa was dazzling. She had the beauty of a model and the poise of a queen. Wherever she went, heads turned. She lived wrapped in silks, jewels, and perfume, dining in five-star restaurants, vacationing on exotic islands, and attending glamorous parties by Daniel's side. To the world, they were the perfect couple, envied and admired. But Daniel saw what the world could not. He noticed the way Vanessa's eyes sparkled more at expensive gifts than at his touch. He felt her impatience when conversations turned to his dreams beyond business and wealth. He sensed her drifting heart whenever he spoke of a simple life, free from the spotlight. Late one night, sitting alone in his study, Daniel swirled a glass of wine and stared into the darkness. Would she love me if I had nothing? If I were broken, weak, unable to provide her with the life she adores? The question gnawed at him. His fortune could buy diamonds, but it could never buy sincerity. That night, he made a decision that would alter the course of his life. He would test Vanessa, not with money, not with gifts, but with a cruel trick of fate. The next morning, Daniel told Vanessa he had been in a terrible accident. He claimed the doctors were uncertain whether he would ever walk again. He presented himself in a wheelchair, his movements slow, his face painted with helplessness. It was a performance worthy of an actor, but for Daniel, it was a matter of truth. The reaction came instantly. At first, Vanessa froze. Her carefully polished smile cracked, her eyes darting nervously. She touched his shoulder, but her voice betrayed a tremor of irritation instead of sympathy. Paralyzed? You mean you can't walk? Are you serious, Daniel? She didn't cry. She didn't hold him. She asked questions, but not about his pain, about doctors, treatments, and most importantly, for how long? Days passed, and the change in Vanessa was undeniable. Her laughter grew rare, her visits shorter, her patience thinner. She sighed loudly when he asked for help. She rolled her eyes when he dropped something and couldn't pick it up. And at night she disappeared into clubs and parties, leaving him in silence. Daniel noticed, but he said nothing. He watched, recorded every reaction in his mind, and let the truth reveal itself like ink spreading across paper. But someone else noticed too. Maria, the maid who had worked quietly in the mansion for years, began to step into the light. She had always been there, dusting shelves, setting the table, polishing the marble floors, but invisible in Vanessa's glittering world. Now she was the one bringing Daniel water when Vanessa forgot. She was the one adjusting the curtains so sunlight touched his face. She asked him softly if he needed a blanket when nights grew cold. Her kindness was simple, unpolished, but sincere. Unlike Vanessa, Maria never made him feel like a burden. She didn't sigh when she wheeled him to the garden. She didn't frown when she prepared his meals. Instead, she smiled gently, humming under her breath, and reminded him of small joys, how the roses were blooming, how the sky looked golden at sunset, how life still moved with beauty even in hardship. Daniel began to feel something he hadn't felt in years, comfort that wasn't bought, warmth that wasn't fake. He studied Maria's face, her tired eyes from long hours of work, yet her spirit remained unbroken. She didn't know she was being watched, but every gesture of care became a mirror showing Daniel what real love might look like. And as Vanessa's distance grew, Maria's quiet presence filled the emptiness. Daniel's heart trembled with an unexpected realization. Perhaps the answer to his question wouldn't come from the woman he thought he loved, but from the one who had been silently by his side all along. Days blurred into weeks, and Daniel's world inside the grand mansion grew smaller. Every morning began with the sound of Vanessa's heels clicking against the marble floors, but even those sounds became rarer. She visited him less and less, always with excuses, lunches with friends, shopping trips, or charity events she simply couldn't miss. When she did appear, her presence was more a performance than comfort. She'd pose beside his chair, smile for a quick photo, and whisper about how difficult life had become. Daniel watched carefully. His heart no longer broke. It hardened. The test was working, and the truth revealed itself in the cruelest ways. Vanessa was not a partner. She was a prisoner of luxury, chained not to him, but to his wealth. One evening, he heard her speaking on the phone in the hallway, her voice hushed but sharp. "I can't keep doing this. He's not the man I fell for. He's useless now. Always sitting there needing help. I need someone who can keep up with me, someone who isn't broken." The words echoed in his chest like knives scraping bone. She thought he couldn't hear, but he heard every syllable. When she returned to the room, she forced a smile and asked if he needed anything, her tone dripping with impatience. Daniel thanked her softly, but inside he made a silent vow. "I won't beg you to stay. The truth will set me free." That night, she left early for yet another party, dressed in diamonds he had bought, her perfume filling the air long after she was gone. The mansion fell into silence until Maria entered. She carried a simple tray, a bowl of soup, freshly baked bread, and water. "Sir," she said gently, "you haven't eaten." Her voice was humble, but her eyes reflected sincerity. She set the tray beside him, making sure it was within his reach. Unlike Vanessa, she didn't rush. She adjusted his blanket, straightened his chair, and sat for a moment as if to ensure he was truly okay. Daniel studied her face. She wasn't polished like Vanessa, but there was an honesty in her smile, a quiet dignity in her presence. "Maria," he asked softly, "why do you care so much? It's not your duty to look after me beyond the housework." She hesitated, then replied, "Because you are human before you are wealthy. Pain deserves kindness, no matter who feels it. I know what it is like to feel invisible, to feel helpless, and I would never wish loneliness on anyone." Her words struck something deep within him. For years, Daniel had been surrounded by people who saw him only as a golden ticket. Yet here was a woman who looked past his fortune and saw his humanity. He found himself waiting for her visits, listening for the soft sound of her footsteps. She was no longer just the maid. She was a reminder of life beyond wealth, a glimpse of what true care could feel like. As days passed, Vanessa's patience wore thinner. She snapped when Daniel asked for help moving his chair. She scoffed when he dropped his glass. Once, when he struggled to reach for a blanket, she rolled her eyes and muttered, "Do you expect me to be your nurse forever?" She didn't realize Maria overheard. Later that night, Maria quietly entered and handed him the blanket with a gentle smile. "You don't need to explain yourself, sir. We all need help sometimes." That one sentence warmed him more than the blanket itself. Slowly, Daniel began to confide in Maria. He asked about her life, her childhood, her family. She spoke of growing up in poverty, of losing her father at a young age, of working tirelessly to support her siblings. Her struggles were heavy, but she carried them with strength instead of bitterness. She didn't envy the rich. She only wished for peace, health, and simple joy. Daniel realized he had never heard Vanessa speak that way. Vanessa's world revolved around the next designer bag, the next vacation, the next photo opportunity. Maria's world revolved around love, sacrifice, and hope. One evening, while Vanessa was out again, Daniel and Maria sat by the window. The city lights shimmered in the distance, but Maria's eyes caught his attention more than the skyline. She laughed softly at one of his jokes, a laugh so genuine it filled the room with warmth. For the first time in months, Daniel laughed too, not the polite laugh he gave at parties, but a true, unguarded laugh. That night when Vanessa returned, she smelled of cologne that wasn't his. She didn't bother hiding it anymore. She dropped her heels at the door, poured herself a drink, and collapsed on the couch, ignoring Daniel completely. He looked at her, then at Maria, who quietly slipped away to give them space. The contrast was glaring. One woman had abandoned him the moment life grew heavy. The other had stepped forward without being asked. In that silence, Daniel knew his test had already given him the answer. Vanessa had failed. Maria had unknowingly passed. And though his heart still ached with betrayal, it also pulsed with something new. Hope. For in Maria's quiet kindness, he had discovered what wealth could never buy. Love without condition. The morning sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the Moretti mansion, casting long golden shadows across the marble floor. Daniel sat in his wheelchair in the center of the living room, his hands resting calmly on the armrests. But inside his heart was pounding. Today was the day he would end the charade, reveal the truth, and finally free himself from the doubts that had haunted him. He called for both Vanessa and Maria to join him. Vanessa appeared first, dressed in an elegant silk robe, her hair still curled from the night before. She carried herself with the entitlement of someone who believed the world owed her everything. Maria entered quietly behind her, dressed simply in her maid's uniform, her hands clasped nervously in front of her. She had no idea what was about to unfold. Daniel's voice broke the silence. "Vanessa, Maria, there is something I need to tell you both." Vanessa raised an eyebrow, impatient. "Can this wait? I have a spa appointment." Daniel shook his head slowly. "No, it cannot wait. For weeks now I've been living a lie. I told you, Vanessa, that I was paralyzed, that I may never walk again. But the truth is—" He paused, gripping the armrests tightly. Then, in one slow, deliberate movement, he rose to his feet. Maria gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. Vanessa's jaw dropped, her eyes wide with shock. "What? You can walk?" she stammered. Daniel nodded. "Yes, I could walk all along. The accident was staged. This wheelchair, this weakness, it was all part of a test. I needed to know the truth. I needed to know if you loved me for who I am, or only for the life I provide." The room fell into heavy silence, broken only by Vanessa's sharp intake of breath. Then her shock turned to fury. "You lied to me? You made me live through this humiliation pretending to take care of you? Do you have any idea what people would think if they found out? How dare you manipulate me like this?" Daniel's eyes hardened. "Humiliation? That's what you call it. I was testing your love, Vanessa. But all you gave me was indifference, impatience, and betrayal. I heard your words, the ones you whispered on the phone, the ones you thought I couldn't hear. I need someone who can take me places. I didn't sign up to babysit a cripple. Do you deny it?" Vanessa's face flushed red. Her mouth opened, then closed again. Finally, she snapped. "So what? Do you blame me for wanting more than to be tied down to a man in a chair? I deserve a life of excitement, not one of pity." Daniel stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. "No, Vanessa. You deserve exactly what you value, money, status, and shallow love. But you will no longer find it here." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "You're throwing me out? For her?" She gestured toward Maria with venom, as if spitting the word. "She's just a maid. She scrubs floors. She's nothing compared to me." Daniel turned to Maria, who stood frozen in disbelief, tears glistening in her eyes. His expression softened. "You're wrong, Vanessa. She's everything you are not. She gave me kindness when I was weak, patience when I was frustrated, and respect when I had nothing to offer. She never once saw me as a burden. She saw me as a man." Vanessa let out a bitter laugh. "You're insane. You'd give up a woman like me for her?" Daniel's voice was steady, unshakable. "Yes, because love isn't about diamonds or vacations. It's about loyalty, care, and truth. And Maria has all of that while you had none." Vanessa's face twisted with rage. She grabbed her purse, muttering curses under her breath. "Fine, enjoy your little charity case. Don't come crawling back to me when you regret it." With that, she stormed out of the mansion, slamming the heavy doors behind her. The echo of the slam lingered in the vast room, but for Daniel, it was the sound of freedom. The weight of doubt lifted from his chest, leaving behind a lightness he hadn't felt in years. He turned slowly to Maria, who stood trembling, still unsure if she should even be there. "Maria," Daniel said softly, stepping closer, "I owe you more than I can ever express. You saw me when I felt invisible. You cared for me when I felt unworthy, and you gave me hope when I had none left. I tested love in the cruelest way, but in losing what was false, I found what was real, your heart." Maria's eyes filled with tears, her voice shaking. "Sir, I never expected anything from you. I only did what felt right." "You don't need to thank me." Daniel took her hands gently in his. "Don't call me sir, not anymore. Call me Daniel, and if you'll let me, I want to walk this life not as your employer, but as the man who loves you." Maria's tears spilled freely now. She whispered, If you mean it, Daniel, if this is truly from your heart, then I will stand by you. Always. In that moment, the mansion no longer felt cold and hollow. It was no longer just a monument to wealth. It became a home filled with warmth that no amount of money could buy. Daniel pulled Maria into a gentle embrace, feeling for the first time that his heart was no longer empty. The test had cost him one woman, but it had given him something far greater, the truth and a love that would last a lifetime. As the sun set beyond the city skyline, Daniel realized the lesson he had been searching for all along. Money could buy houses, cars, and diamonds, but it could never buy the loyalty of a pure heart. And in Maria he had found the priceless treasure he had always longed for, true love. Love cannot be tested with wealth. It shines brightest in hardship. The truest hearts reveal themselves when everything else fades away.